The rain drummed against the windows of St. Michael's Academy of Music as Olivia Thomas finished arranging the last of her sheet music. Thunder rolled across the sky, and she glanced at her watch, 9:45 p.m. Her student spring recital was tomorrow, and she had stayed late perfecting the program order, losing track of time as she often did when immersed in music. As she gathered her belongings, a haunting sound drifted through the empty hallways. At first, she thought it was just the wind, but there was something more, a melody she had never heard before, ethereal and ancient, like starlight transformed into sound. Olivia followed the music to the auditorium. The emergency lights cast long shadows across the rows of empty seats. The sound grew stronger, more distinct, yet somehow still felt like it was coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. As she approached the stage, she noticed a shimmer in the air, like heat waves rising from summer pavement. The shimmer coalesced into a figure huddled behind the grand piano. Olivia's breath caught in her throat. The being before her was clearly not human, its skin had a translucent quality that seemed to capture and reflect light in impossible ways, and its fingers were too long, too graceful to be earthly. But what struck Olivia most were its eyes. They held the depth of ancient nebulae, swirling with colors she had no names for. The alien was wounded, clutching its side where a strange, silvery substance seeped between its fingers. When it saw Olivia, it tried to retreat further into the shadows, but weakness overcame it, and it slumped against the piano leg with a sound like wind chimes in distress. "It's okay," Olivia said softly, raising her hands to show she meant no harm. "I'm not going to hurt you." She took a slow step forward, then another. The alien watched her with those cosmic eyes, fear and exhaustion evident in its posture. Olivia reached into her bag and pulled out the dinner she had forgotten to eat, a simple sandwich and an apple. She held them out, moving carefully. "Are you hungry? Can you eat our food?" The alien hesitated, then reached out with trembling fingers. It examined the sandwich with an almost childlike curiosity before taking a tentative bite. A sound like distant bells filled the air, a sigh of relief, Olivia realized. The alien consumed the food with increasing urgency, and Olivia's heart ached at the obvious desperation. When the food was gone, the alien looked at her with an expression that transcended species, gratitude. It pressed its hand to its chest and made a series of musical tones that seemed to ripple through the air. Though Olivia couldn't understand the words, she felt their meaning in her bones. "Thank you." "You're welcome," she replied, then gestured to the wound. "You're hurt. I can help, but you'll have to trust me." The alien considered her words, or perhaps just her tone, for a long moment. Then it nodded, the movement oddly human despite its otherworldly appearance. Olivia pulled the first aid kit from her emergency supplies and approached slowly. As she cleaned and bandaged the wound, she hummed softly, an old lullaby her grandmother used to sing. The alien's tension gradually eased, and to Olivia's amazement, it began to hum along, adding harmonies that made the simple melody sound like a symphony of stars. "I'm Olivia," she said when she finished, pointing to herself. The alien touched its chest and made a sound like crystal wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Olivia tried to repeat it but couldn't quite capture the musical quality. The alien's eyes crinkled in what she hoped was amusement. A sudden crack of thunder made them both jump. The alien's fear returned instantly, its skin pulsing with waves of dim light. It looked toward the windows with obvious dread, and Olivia realized it wasn't just the storm causing such terror. "Someone's looking for you, aren't they?" she asked quietly. The alien's response was a low, mournful tone that needed no translation. Olivia made a decision then, one that would change her life forever. "Come with me. I have a place where you can rest safely." As she helped the alien to its feet, she knew she was stepping into something much bigger than herself. But when those starlit eyes met hers with trust and hope, she couldn't find it in her heart to do anything else. Sometimes, she would later reflect, the most important symphonies in life begin with a simple act of kindness. Olivia's basement studio had never felt so alive. The alien sat cross-legged on her worn leather couch, surrounded by musical instruments collected over years of teaching. Its wounds were healing remarkably fast, the silvery substance now just a faint mark beneath its translucent skin. But more fascinating was how it responded to every instrument in the room, its skin rippling with colors that seemed to match each unique timbre. 3 days had passed since that stormy night in the auditorium. Olivia had called in sick to school, something she'd never done before, but she couldn't leave her unexpected guest alone. She'd learned to interpret some of the aliens' musical communications. Higher-pitched chimes meant yes, lower ones no, and certain melodic patterns expressed basic needs or emotions. The alien, whom she'd started calling Aria because of its musical nature, was particularly fascinated by her violin. When Olivia first played it, Aria's entire being lit up with swirling patterns of light, like an aurora borealis given form. Now, Aria held the instrument with reverence, long fingers hovering over the strings. Like this, Olivia demonstrated, positioning the bow. Aria mimicked her movements perfectly, but the sound that emerged wasn't anything earthly. It was as if the violin had been transformed into a cosmic instrument, producing notes that existed between the standard musical scales, creating harmonies that shouldn't have been possible. As Aria played, images began to form in the air around them, holographic projections, Olivia realized with awe. She saw a world with twin suns, where crystalline structures rose like frozen music given physical form. She saw beings like Aria, their bodies pulsing with light as they moved through these structures, creating endless symphonies with their very existence. But then the images darkened. New figures appeared, their forms rigid and dark, moving with military precision. They carried devices that emitted discordant sounds, painful to watch even in projection. Olivia saw Aria's people being silenced, their musical essences somehow suppressed, forced into uniformity. The violin's song became a lament, and Olivia understood. Aria wasn't just a refugee, she was part of a resistance, fighting to preserve her people's artistic heritage against a regime that sought to eliminate individual expression. The music wasn't just communication or art for Aria's species, it was the very essence of their being. "They're trying to silence your people's songs," Olivia whispered. Aria lowered the violin, her eyes swirling with darker colors that Olivia had come to recognize as sorrow. A soft, mournful melody filled the air between them, confirmation and grief intertwined. Olivia moved to her piano, her fingers finding the keys instinctively. She began to play, not a classical piece or a popular song, but something that came from her heart, a melody that spoke of understanding and solidarity. To her amazement, Aria joined in with the violin, their instruments weaving together in an impossible duet that bridged their two worlds. As they played, Olivia's mind raced with possibilities. If music was so fundamental to Aria's people, could Earth's rich musical traditions offer them sanctuary? Could the universal language of music become a weapon against oppression? Their improvised duet built to a crescendo, and suddenly Olivia's small studio felt like it contained the entire universe. The walls seemed to vibrate with possibility, and she could have sworn she heard other voices joining in, distant echoes of other musical refugees, scattered across the stars. When the last notes faded, Aria set down the violin and approached the piano. She placed her luminescent hand over Olivia's and produced a series of crystalline tones that somehow formed words in Olivia's mind, others coming. "Need safe haven. Earth's music, beacon of hope." Olivia squeezed Aria's hand gently. "Then we'll need help," she said firmly. "I know just the person, my brother Nathan. He works in satellite communications, and more importantly, he never missed a single one of my concerts growing up." Aria's skin brightened with what Olivia now recognized as optimism. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in colors that reminded her of Aria's homeworld projections. As she reached for her phone to call Nathan, Olivia realized that her life as a simple music teacher was over. She was about to become part of an interstellar underground railroad for artistic refugees, with music as their guide and Earth's artistic heritage as their shield. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she felt more alive than ever before. After all, wasn't this what music was always meant to do, bring people together, give voice to the voiceless, and light the way toward freedom? As she dialed Nathan's number, Arya began to hum a melody that sounded like hope-given voice, and Olivia knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them in harmony. Nathan's apartment was a maze of computers and satellite equipment, their screens casting a blue glow that reminded Olivia of Arya's bioluminescence. Her brother hadn't even blinked when she'd shown up at midnight with an alien refugee. He'd just pushed his glasses up his nose and said, "Finally, something interesting happens in this town." Now, 2 weeks after that stormy night in the auditorium, they sat surrounded by equipment as Nathan tracked unusual energy signatures in the night sky. Arya stood by the window, her form shifting between visibility and translucence as she hummed a complex sequence of tones that Nathan's computers translated into data. "There's definitely a pattern," Nathan said, his fingers flying over multiple keyboards. "The energy spikes match Earth's major musical centers, concert halls, opera houses, famous music schools. They're using our musical culture like a map." Olivia watched as dots of light appeared on his main screen, forming a constellation of potential landing sites. "How many are out there, Arya? How many are trying to escape?" Arya's response was a haunting chord that made the air vibrate. The computer translated, "Thousands." The silence spreads. "More flee each day." The name they'd given to the oppressive regime, the silence, sent chills down Olivia's spine. Through their musical communications over the past weeks, she'd learned more about their methods. They used technology to dampen the natural harmonics of Arya's people, forcing them into a state of monotonous uniformity. Those who resisted disappeared into reharmonization centers, emerging changed, their inner music corrupted into a single, government-approved frequency. "We've got movement," Nathan announced suddenly. 3 energy signatures, similar to Arya's, approaching the Pacific Northwest. "They'll be here within days." Arya's skin pulsed with urgent patterns. "The hunters follow," her translated song warned. "They track our harmonics." "Then we need to move fast," Olivia said, pulling out her phone. Over the past 2 weeks, she'd carefully built a network of trusted musicians, former students, colleagues, anyone she knew who understood that music was more than just entertainment. "I'll contact the safe houses." "Nathan, can you mask their approach somehow?" Her brother grinned, gesturing to a device he'd built using Arya's guidance. "Already on it. This baby generates a field of random harmonics, like musical chaff. Should confuse any tracking systems." As they worked, Olivia reflected on how quickly their operation had grown. The school's janitor, an amateur jazz musician, had discovered their secret but offered his help instead of reporting them. A former student who worked at the local radio station had figured out how to embed warning signals into late-night broadcasts. Even Olivia's elderly neighbor, a retired opera singer, had converted her soundproofed practice room into an alien shelter. But their activities hadn't gone unnoticed. Strange vehicles had been spotted near the school, and Nathan had detected unusual interference in his communications equipment. The hunters were getting closer. Arya suddenly stiffened, her skin becoming almost transparent with fear. A discordant note filled the room, making everyone wince. Through the window, they saw lights in the sky, not the warm twinkle of stars, but the cold, geometric patterns of searching vessels. "They're early," Nathan muttered, fingers racing across his keyboard. "The masking field isn't ready." Olivia felt fear grip her heart, but then she remembered something Arya had shown her about her people's music, how harmony could emerge from discord, how multiple voices could become stronger together. She rushed to Nathan's synthesizer setup and began to play, her fingers finding a melody that matched the frequency of Arya's natural harmonics. Understanding dawned in Arya's celestial eyes. She added her voice to the music, and then Nathan caught on, programming his computers to broadcast the growing symphony. Across the city, their network of musicians received the signal and understood. Soon, the night air was filled with music from dozens of sources: jazz from late-night clubs, classical pieces from practice rooms, folk songs from street performers who knew nothing of aliens but felt compelled to join the spontaneous concert. The searching lights faltered, confused by the tapestry of sound that masked their quarry's unique signature. Aria's song soared above the earthly music, no longer afraid but triumphant. In that moment, Olivia understood something profound about both their species. The power of art wasn't just in its beauty, but in its ability to unite, to protect, to defy those who would impose silence. As the hunters' lights retreated, frustrated by their inability to isolate their targets, Olivia knew they had found their weapon against the silence. Earth's chaotic, beautiful, endless variety of music would become a shield for those seeking freedom. But she also knew that this was just the beginning. The hunters would return, better prepared, and their network would need to be stronger. Nathan's computer chimed with new alerts: more refugees were coming. Aria's skin shimmered with patterns that spoke of both hope and determination. They had work to do, songs to prepare, and a symphony of resistance to conduct. The music of Earth would become a beacon for those fleeing the silence, and Olivia Thomas, once just a music teacher, would help orchestrate their salvation. The underground concert hall buzzed with nervous energy. Once an abandoned subway station, it had been transformed into a sanctuary by Olivia's growing network of musical rebels. Crystalline structures, grown from Aria's biotechnology, lined the walls, amplifying and transforming Earth's music into frequencies that could reach across space. 3 months had passed since that first stormy night, and their operation had evolved beyond anything Olivia could have imagined. 37 refugees now called Earth home, each bringing their own unique harmonies to add to humanity's musical tapestry. But tonight was different. Tonight, they were attempting something unprecedented. "The transmission needs to be perfect," Nathan said, adjusting his equipment. "If we're off by even a fraction of a frequency, the entire 7th Harmonic Academy won't receive the signal." Olivia watched as Aria conducted a group of refugees in preparation, their bodies pulsing with light in complex patterns. They had learned that the Academy, a secret school preserving their people's true musical heritage, was about to be discovered by the silence. Over 300 students and teachers needed extraction, and Earth was their only hope. "The hunters have adapted to our previous methods," Aria's translated song warned. "They can now filter through multiple frequencies, isolate our harmonics even in chaos. Then we'll give them something they've never heard before," Olivia replied, her hands moving to the modified piano before her. The instrument had been rebuilt with Aria's crystalline technology, capable of producing sounds that bridged both human and alien musical scales. The plan was audacious. They would transmit a complex symphony, a combination of human and alien music so powerful it would temporarily disrupt the silence's suppression fields, creating a window for escape. But it had to be more than just sound; it needed to carry hope, coordinates, and precise instructions encoded within its harmonies. Nathan's screens suddenly lit up with warning signals. "We've got movement in high orbit. Multiple vessels, silent signatures. They're early." Olivia felt fear twist in her stomach, but she pushed it aside. "Everyone in position," she called out. Around the hall, human musicians took their places alongside their alien counterparts. An elderly violinist stood beside a luminescent being who held an instrument that looked like flowing water given form. A teenage jazz drummer sat ready next to a refugee whose body was itself a percussion instrument, capable of producing rhythms that defied earthly physics. "Remember," Olivia said, her voice carrying across the chamber, "we're not just playing music tonight. We're playing for freedom." The first notes rose from her modified piano, a melody that spoke of Earth, its oceans, its winds, its wild and wonderful chaos. The alien refugees joined in, their harmonies telling of distant stars and crystal cities. Human instruments and voices merged with alien songs, creating something entirely new. Nathan's computers began broadcasting the symphony into space, encoded with the vital information the Academy would need. But then his screens flashed red. They're jamming us. The hunters, they're blocking the upper frequencies. Olivia looked to Arya, who was conducting with movements that left trails of light in the air. They had prepared for this. Second movement, Olivia called out. Now. The music shifted, diving into deeper registers. The human choir began a Gregorian chant that resonated with the very foundations of the station, while the aliens wove their highest harmonics through the low human tones. It was like nothing ever heard on Earth or any other world, a perfect fusion of two musical traditions that had evolved galaxies apart. The jamming signals faltered, unable to block all frequencies at once. Through the interference, Nathan picked up a response, a faint melody that matched their own. The Academy received it. They're preparing for transport. But their victory was short-lived. The station's lights flickered as a new presence made itself known, a cold, monotonous tone that cut through their symphony like a knife. The silence had arrived in person. Multiple ships entering atmosphere, Nathan reported, his voice tight. They'll be here within minutes. Olivia looked around the chamber at her unlikely orchestra, humans and aliens united by music and defiance. She saw determination in every face, heard it in every note. They had come too far to stop now. Final movement, she announced, her fingers finding new keys on the crystalline piano. Everything we've got. For both our worlds. The music swelled, not fighting the silence's oppressive tone but embracing it, transforming it. Human voices soared while alien harmonies twisted through impossible scales. The crystalline structures in the walls began to resonate, adding their own voice to the symphony. In orbit, the Academy's students and teachers heard their signal through the chaos, a beacon guiding them to freedom. As the hunters closed in on their hidden concert hall, Olivia felt something extraordinary, a vibration that went beyond sound, beyond music, beyond the very boundaries of what she had believed possible. The underground chamber filled with light, both from the aliens' bioluminescence and from something deeper, something that spoke of humanity's endless capacity to create, to connect, to defy the darkness with art and courage. The symphony reached its crescendo, and in that moment, Olivia understood that whatever happened next, they had already won. They had proven that music, whether born on Earth or among distant stars, would always find a way to be heard. The walls of the underground concert hall trembled as the silence's ships landed on the streets above. Their monotonous dampening field pressed down like a heavy fog, threatening to smother the symphony that Olivia and her unlikely orchestra had created. But still they played on, their music a lifeline to the 300 souls trying to escape the Seventh Harmonic Academy. Transport signatures detected. Nathan shouted over the music, his computers struggling to maintain their connection through the interference. The Academy's making the jump, but the hunters are tracking their trajectory. They'll be intercepted before they reach Earth's orbit. Arya's skin pulsed with urgent patterns as she conducted both human and alien musicians. Her translated song cut through the chaos, the silence brings their nullifiers. They will try to corrupt our harmony, turn it against us. As if in response to her warning, heavy footsteps echoed from the station's old tunnels. The music faltered for just a moment as fear rippled through the assembled performers. Olivia saw shadows moving in the entrances, tall, rigid figures in dark armor that seemed to absorb light and sound. "Don't stop playing," Olivia commanded, her fingers dancing across her crystalline-modified piano. "The moment we stop, it's over. For all of them." The nullifiers entered the chamber, their armor emitting waves of anti-harmonic energy designed to silence any music they encountered. But they hesitated at the sight before them, humans and aliens performing together, their music defying the very physics the silence had built their empire upon. "They've never seen anything like this," Nathan realized, his eyes wide behind his glasses. Their dampening technology was designed for single-species harmonics. They don't know how to counter both at once. Olivia seized the opportunity. Everyone with breath, sing. Everyone with hands, play. Give them every song Earth has ever known. The chamber erupted with sound. A jazz saxophonist wailed a solo that wrapped around an alien's crystalline tones. The elderly opera singer's voice soared in an aria that perfectly complemented the geometric patterns of light pulsing from the refugee musicians. The teenage drummer found rhythms that matched the heartbeat of their alien companions. The nullifiers advanced, adjusting their dampening fields, but for every frequency they silenced, the orchestra found 3 more. Earth's music proved too chaotic, too varied to suppress. Centuries of human creativity, from classical masterpieces to folk songs, from rock anthems to tribal drums, merged with alien harmonies to create something that transcended both species' understanding of music itself. Above them, Nathan's screens showed the Academy ships weaving through space, riding waves of harmony transmitted from Earth. The hunters' vessels struggled to lock onto them, their targeting systems confused by the unprecedented fusion of musical patterns. But the silence had one final weapon. The lead nullifier raised a device that emitted a sound like the death of stars, the anti-music that had broken so many of Aria's people. Olivia felt it in her bones, a terrible emptiness that threatened to devour all sound, all hope, all life itself. Then she remembered something Aria had shown her about her people's history. Before they had instruments, before they had technology, they had their own voices. The purest music came not from devices or calculations, but from the soul itself. Olivia stood from her piano and began to sing. Not a composed piece, not a practiced performance, but a song that came from the very core of her being. A song about Earth, about humanity's eternal drive to create, to connect, to reach beyond the stars. A song about finding family among the strangers and hope in the darkness. One by one, every human in the chamber joined in, their voices rising in spontaneous harmony. The aliens added their own soul songs, their bodies blazing with light that pushed back the shadows. The crystalline structures in the walls began to sing too, resonating with the pure emotion filling the space. The anti-music faltered. The nullifier's armor cracked, unable to contain the raw power of 2 species singing their truth. Above, the Academy ships made their final jump to Earth's orbit, riding the wave of that impossible choir. When the last nullifier fell, when the hunters retreated in confusion, when the screens showed hundreds of refugee signals safely arriving in Earth's atmosphere, only then did the song finally end. The silence that followed was not the empty void of oppression, but the warm quiet of peace, of victory, of new possibilities. Aria approached Olivia, her form radiant with joy. Her translated song spoke of gratitude, of wonder at humanity's unexpected power. We thought we were seeking refuge, the melody said, but we found something more. We found partners in the great symphony of existence. Olivia looked around the chamber at her expanded family, humans and aliens alike, all forever changed by their shared music. Nathan was already working with refugee scientists, combining Earth's technology with their harmonic knowledge to create new defenses. Musicians from both worlds were excitedly sharing techniques, creating new instruments, composing pieces that would never have been possible alone. The silence will return, Aria's song warned, but there was no fear in the melody now. They cannot accept the chaos of freedom. Let them come, Olivia replied, taking Aria's luminescent hand in her own. Earth has more songs than they could ever silence. And now, so do you. As if to prove her point, a new piece of music began, a spontaneous celebration of their victory. Humans and aliens joined together once more, but this time not in desperate defense. This was a song of joy, of unity, of 2 civilizations discovering that their greatest strength lay not in uniformity, but in the beautiful chaos of harmony. And somewhere in that music, in the combination of Earth's wild creativity and the aliens' cosmic harmonies, a new kind of symphony was born, one that would echo across the stars, calling to all those who longed to sing freely, promising them that on a small blue planet called Earth, there would always be music.